Nasarawa.
Okay.
Not Taraba. Taraba too, abi?
The Supreme Court earlier today laid to rest the disputes over the outcomes of the March 2023 governorship elections in 8 states. The states are Lagos, Kano, Zamfara, Ebonyi, Plateau, Abia, Cross River, and Bauchi. The cases, which started at the various election petition tribunals in the various states, gave rise to decisions which aggrieved parties had appealed against at the Court of Appeal and subsequently the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the third and final level of appeal on governorship election disputes in Nigeria. Therefore, join us as we delve into the intricate web of legal battles and also dissect landmark rulings that have reshaped the political landscape of Nigeria, from contentious elections to constitutional interpretations, as we unravel the complexities, hear experts' analysis, and understand the far-reaching implications of these pivotal Supreme Court decisions on governorship election appeals in some states in Nigeria. Stay tuned for a compelling exploration of law, politics, and governance in Nigeria's dynamic judicial system. Thanks for joining us. I am Eucharia Clinton, and this is Nigeria Today. Joining us here in the studio is two friends of the house. The first is an international and public affairs analyst, is Jide Ojo. It's good to have you on Nigeria Today.
Good evening, Nigeria.
Also with us here in the studio is a lawyer and an international democracy analyst, Dr. Minasira Kogo. Welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you. It's always my honor to be here. Thank you.
Jide, I'll start with you. The Supreme Court's rulings, of 8 states. Did anyone come as a surprise to you?
I can't say that I foresee everything that happened, because there were 2 states that are of interest to many Nigerians, not just me, which is Plateau and Kano, where, in fact, 3 states, Plateau, Kano, and Zamfara, where either Court of First Instance, that's the tribunal, or the Court of Appeal have nullified. Recall that the Court of Appeal declared the election in Zamfara inconclusive and said there should be rerun election, supplementary election in about 3 local governments. But for Kano, it was an outright, nullification by both the Court of First Instance and the Court of Appeal. That has put Kano on edge. The case of Plateau is even more intricate. The Court of First Instance upheld the election of the governor, only for Court of Appeal to nullify it. And of all the decisions today, the one that came to me as most painful is that of Plateau. Now, this is the pain, because there are many PDP candidates who suffered collateral damage, whose cases were irredeemable because they terminated at the lower court, at the Court of Appeal. If the senator that was sacked by the Court of Appeal, the House of Reps member that was sacked, of PDP extraction that was sacked, if the about 11 members of Plateau State House of Assembly that were sacked, if they had the opportunity to get their cases to Supreme Court, they would have enjoyed the benefit that Governor Caleb Mutfwang has enjoyed now, which is the reality of having the case resolved at the Apex Court. However, the judiciary has once again come out very strong to defend Nigeria's democracy. So all the bashing, I rise on judiciary that we've been hearing since last year, they have succeeded in calming nerves. They have succeeded in reducing the political temperature in all across the country, because assuming that this decision of the Court of Appeal in Zamfara, in Kano and Plateau had been upheld, perhaps your station should have been reporting riots, murder and all of that. But you could see that your correspondents across those states said that everything was calm, which means that people were happy with the decision of the court. And that's the way it should be. But it has raised a point of law about, what happens where there is this kind of the collateral damage. Could there be nothing that could be done for the colleagues of Caleb Mutfwang who has suffered this miscarriage of justice? Because that's what Justice Inyang Okoro, I think, called it, miscarriage of justice at the Court of Appeal.
I will have to stop you here, Judy. Now, let's hear Minasara's own thoughts on these rulings. Did anyone at all come, strike you as, being a surprising decision?
Well, in all honesty, none of the judgments came to me as a surprise. None of them. Because going by the temperament of the nation, immediately after the delivery of the various governorship election appeal judgments at the level of the Court of Appeal, there were a lot of bashings against the quality of the judgments. And the basis upon which the judgments were given then were the reasons why people were bashing the judiciary. And I think this is a giant stride, a very serious, unprecedented, revolutionary move by the Apex Court to really redeem the image of the judicature. And they apply three basic principles regarding all this. Number one, that the supremacy of the law should be respected by all and sundry. In other words, technicalities should not be the basis upon which you will be able to get judgments in our courts. Because the Supreme Court decided that all such these things, they look at the solidity of the law. For example, when you are talking in respect of the cases of Kano and I think it's Ebonyi State, the second one that are talking about the qualifications for elections, talking about somebody who is not a member of the political party. Under section 221 to 227, the political party is the candidate. It is the name of the political party you will see on the ballot paper. It is the logo of the political party you will see, not the name of the candidate. And by virtue of which the Supreme Court pronounced today that members of the opposition should not in any way put accusing finger on a particular political party regarding how they should determine who should be their flag bearer. I think that is a solid judgment. The second one has to do with the issue of bringing about all these matters of pre-election cases, as in the case of Plateau and some other states. All those matters that have to do with pre-election, they are matters under an edict, under an act, under the Electoral Act. All those matters under the Electoral Act, specifically under sections 29, 30, 31, 32 up to 34, when they are in conflict with the position of the Constitution, the Supreme Court really pronounced today that the position of the Constitution prevails as per the provision of section 1, subsection 2 of the Constitution. And that is the reason why all those pre-election matter arguments were not considered. The third point the Supreme Court considered is the ability for you to really prove a case, like in the case of Imo, in the case of Akwa Ibom State and the rest. The litigants there, the Supreme Court pronounced that they are unable to produce the case to the satisfaction of the jury to enable them benefit from what they are dissing. And then regarding what my brother is talking about, the practice in our judicature under sections 230 to 304 of the Constitution is that you cannot get what you did not plead for. So it's unfortunate that electoral cases of some people are terminating at the level of the Court of Appeal. So they don't have the leverage of the Supreme Court to look into them. But by and large, the decision of the Supreme Court regarding these 8 governorship elections It's a watershed in the history. It will go a long way in strengthening the solidity of democracy and the system of governance in Nigeria. And kudos must be given really to President Bola Tinubu for his dogged determination not to interfere in what the judiciary is doing, because that is what has given the judiciary the latitude for them to really be independent, to be dispassionate in giving these sound judgments today.
Okay. Now, Jide, having heard about these decisions, you've said, of course, you told us the one that really pained you and why. So, how would this affect or influence the political landscape of Nigeria, looking at every decision as they played out?
Well, I think it has restored faith and confidence in the judiciary as the last hope of the masses. First, I must establish the fact that this is unprecedented. What has happened today is unprecedented. That the apex court will deliver judgment in eight governorship elections in one fell swoop. It's unprecedented. I don't know whether my Oga at the top here has any memory
and to the satisfaction of the citizenry.
Of the citizenry.
Yes.
That you will deliver, two things has happened over this 2023 government. 2023 general election. The decision of the Court of Appeal in September over the presidential election took about 12 hours. That too was unprecedented.
Yes.
About 12 hours. Decision.
Yes.
Everybody was glued to the TV for like 11 to 12 hours. That was unprecedented. The second unprecedented thing was delivering judgment in 8 governorship elections in one day. That is again unprecedented. But I like the addendum of Dr. Kogo, that to the satisfaction of the citizenry. Even in Kano, in Plateau, no opposition raised issue. Or there were no riots, to the best of my knowledge. Everybody was satisfied with the decision of the court. And let me plead with the political class. They should not destroy this democracy. Now, it is clear that even if APC has agenda of making Nigeria a one-party state, that has been thwarted by the Supreme Court. I need to flag this. It's very important to carry it. I did an arithmetic before coming here. I discovered that APC, as of today, has 20 states under its control. PDP has 13 states under its control. APGA has 1 state under its control. Labour Party, 1 state under its control. NNPP, 1 state under its control. 5 political parties out of 19 having state governors. That is the plurality of our federalism. It shows that even fringe parties can still get 1-2 states to control. And that has negated that Nigeria is a one-party or two-party state. But beyond that, we must blame the political class for taking us to this coup d'etat. Why did I say so? Did you know that as a result of their party primaries, litigations around their party primaries were even more than 1,000? Over and above the one INEC itself conducted. So if political parties cannot be a better replica of what they accuse INEC of, now INEC has been vindicated. Why? Remember in December when INEC summoned the emergency meeting of political parties where they agreed on 34 rerun. I don't know whether I was there that day to discuss that issue, where INEC had an emergency meeting with the leadership of political parties. INEC gave a statistics that out of over 1,000 litigations, the court only find INEC culpable in 34 states. In 34 cases. 1 senatorial, about 4 House of Reps, 3 or 4 House of Reps, the rest were State House of Assembly. So when you look at the totality, it amounts to like 2.8% of all the total elections. So it goes against the grain of public opinion that INEC did a bad job. As many people will want to come and lament and say, oh, this is the worst election in history. Now, the court has reviewed what INEC has been able to do. That is not to say that there were no infractions. And I keep reminding people that for you to understand electoral jurisprudence, you need to study what the electoral law is all about. Now, the fact that the court validated the election did not mean that the elections were without infractions. Because what Section 135 of the Electoral Act says is that an election will not be invalidated unless there is substantial non-compliance. So, if there is substantial compliance, then you cannot invalidate an election. But for average Nigerian, because there is a crisis, people could not vote in Oshodi, they could not vote in Lagos Island, 2 local governments out of 20 in Lagos. They say, that election was one of the worst in the history. You deal with statistics. Now, what the Supreme Court decision have shown is that at least the only one I know that the court, earlier court has nullified, which has even been upheld by the Court of Appeal, was that of Nasarawa, which I believe in the coming days we will also see that. But from all indication, I believe that the status quo will remain and peace will return, and we can now plan ahead of 2027 more effectively.
Thank you very much, Judy. Now, Mr. Kogo,
yes.
Dr. Kogo. Now, what played out, what was prominent in most of the cases was the fact that the issue of nomination of
yes.
candidates,
yes.
internal,
yes.
affairs. According to the court, it says the issue of nomination is exclusively the internal affairs of a political party.
Yes.
Therefore, it is not justiciable. However, Justice Okoro now said, that judges at the lower court should be more meticulous in delivering judgments.
Yes.
So what would you say to that?
Fundamentally, that onus rests on INEC. It is a very serious matter Justice Okoro raised, and I think INEC should take that particular aspect very, very seriously. Greater aspects of all the infractions, sincerely speaking, the blame is on INEC. INEC has very, very serious privileges given to it by the Electoral Act. For example, INEC is the one responsible in supervising the conduct of the party primaries. And INEC is the one to approve candidature of parties. INEC is the one to supervise party congresses and the rest. INEC is equally the one responsible when there are crises during elections. It is the one to superintend arrest of culprits. INEC is the one to even prosecute. All these provisions are there in the Electoral Act. Unfortunately, INEC didn't do the much decent. And unfortunately, again, most of the politicians are putting accusing fingers on their co-contestants rather than on the umpire that organize the elections. You understand? Take, for example, the case of Kano. When you are talking about Abba Kabir Yusuf is not a party member of NNPP, for example, and what have you. Abba Kabir Yusuf was not the one that certified the decision, it was INEC. But yes, the accusation by the opposing political party was on INEC decision, to the detriment of accusing INEC for qualifying Abba Kabir Yusuf in the first place. So, in as much as INEC will study the Electoral Act very diligently and then be prepared to be doing the needful at the right time, then so many of them that are having these problems will have been disqualified right at the initial period, based on which we will have clean slate of the decision. By the time politics is being played based on the rules, the Electoral Act is religiously followed and respected by the politicians and by the electoral empire, you will see reduction in the volume of cases that will be going for litigation. For example, the United Kingdom. In 100 years, there was a record of only one political case of disagreement. You understand? So, but we need to evolve the culture of playing the rules, the game by the rules, so that it should start with the umpire that is responsible for supervising this. INEC is the one particularly I'm talking about. Though I don't so much blame INEC. The Electoral Act amendment came in 2022, and at a time when all the political gladiators were warming up to go into arrangements for party primaries and the rest and so on and so forth. But definitely speaking, what has happened from last year to this year is enough for the politicians to learn their lessons. It's enough for the electoral umpire to go back to drawing board and know those areas and study those areas that the law mandates on the INEC to really put eagle eye to be sure that those that are not qualified are not even supposed to be allowed to be candidates. They should be restricted to the level of aspiration at the level of their parties in that regard. And then at the same time too, during the conduct of the elections, INEC should be up and doing, instead of this ad hoc staff, INEC has all the resources and the governmental support to employ adequate number of personnel so that they will reduce the teeming unemployment in the country by engaging these permanent members of staff that have the interest and the spirit of determination and patriotism of INEC for them to do the needed job rather than hiring ad hoc staff and expect them to protect their goodwill.
Yes, I've listened keenly about what you're talking about. You're mentioning INEC in all of this. Well, yes. I'm talking about the issue of jurisdiction. Do they have the jurisdiction to adjudicate in cases relating to internal party?
Not jurisdiction. I said INEC is the one that is having the decision to really accept the candidature of political parties. Okay. INEC is the one that has the decision, and then INEC is the one to really certify whether your primary was in conformity of the law or not. INEC is the one responsible for that. But where INEC decide to play aloof, for example, the issue of sponsorship of candidates, the excessive use of money and the rest. Look at when dollarization of delegates was talking this. INEC did not raise any eyebrow, and none of, including the presence of even security and anti-corrupt agencies, but that thing passed. The issue of campaign against sensationalism, campaign based on tribal, based on religious, based on social dissent, INEC didn't raise any eyebrow on that, which is contrary to the provision of the Electoral Act and contrary to the provision of the Constitution itself.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kogo. Now, Jide, looking ahead, what reforms or changes, looking at today's ruling, what reform or changes, if any, would you recommend to, to strengthen Nigeria's electoral judicial system based on the ruling of today?
Before I forget what I should say, let me slightly disagree with my elder here. INEC has no rights to reject the candidacy of any political party. That power has been stripped of it. INEC only goes to observe, and whoever has issue with the nomination that has been put forward by any of the party is to approach the court. What has come out of today's Supreme Court decision is that the court has come out very clearly to give clear demarcation about pre-election and post-election matters. For instance, the Supreme Court said, APC, you have no right to go and challenge the outcome of PDP primaries in Plateau. Those who have the right to challenge how Muftwang, how Benila, how Honorable Bagos became candidates of PDP are PDP members. So you understand? If INEC has wielded the big stick and said, oh, we observed the primary and Honorable this did not win, but his name was the one forwarded to us, these same party chieftains will go to court and get INEC constrained. In fact, they will issue or they will get court to give order of mandamus to compare that INEC must accept the candidacy that they have put forward. So what today's Supreme Court decision has done is to clearly tell us what amounts to qualification and nomination and where each of these can be pleaded. You recall that the case Oga is referring to, a case of Adifuru and the case of Abba Yusuf. The court decided, look, these are pre-election matter You are talking about qualification. Somebody was not a member of the PDP or he was not a member of NNPP before his name was submitted. That these are issues that should have been canvassed 21 days after the nomination has been put forward. Okay. But at the Federal High Court, not at the Election Tribunal.
Thank you very much, Jide. I would have loved to hear more, but then this is the point where we'll wrap it up for today's episode of Nigeria Today. We'd like to thank our guests once again for their input. Mr. Jide Ojo, an international and public affairs analyst. It's always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Also a lawyer and international democracy analyst, Dr. Min Nasara Kogo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And thank you for being part of the program. Remember, the program Nigeria Today airs weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24. You can also watch this and other episodes on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. I am your carrier, Clinton. Have a wonderful weekend.